our meeting. So
All right,
yeah, we
thank
do
you.
have some new faces. So that's really great to see. Appreciate you being here. So I'm actually going to start this session off by giving an overview of watershed management authorities in Iowa. I just have a few slides to kind of introduce the topic and set the table for our Middle Cedar folks. So many of you have probably heard of a watershed management authority, but to just kind of get some definitions out there, it's really just an intergovernmental agreement between cities, counties, and soil and water conservation districts within a watershed, okay? So these are political subdivisions that decide to get together to work collaboratively on watershed scale issues, knowing that we can't address flooding, we can't address water quality by sticking within our own jurisdictional boundaries. We have to work together. So in order to form a watershed management authority, all of the political subdivisions within that watershed boundary, the Middle Cedar, for example, they have to be invited, but nobody is required to participate. This is completely a voluntary activity. As far as the decision-making goes within the Watershed Management Authority, it's governed by a board of directors, which is made up of the city, county, and soil and water conservation district representatives, and they operate under an approved bylaws. So WMAs in Iowa are made possible through legislation that was passed back in 2010. This is really in response to the 2008 floods. So our legislators realized that we had to create a framework for cooperation within the state to make our kind of success more manageable through cooperation. And as far as the duties of watershed management authorities, it really kind of is based on assessing water quality and flooding, looking at potential solutions to that, perhaps through developing a watershed management plan. We like to encourage that. And just kind of providing education and information. As Carl pointed out, education is really going to be key to help further our efforts, and I think everyone here today is aware of that. The legislation is very clear that WMAs shall not acquire property through eminent domain. So that's an issue that comes up, a question that comes up a lot. We're not trying to create more government here. We're trying to create cooperation, and cooperation amongst governments. Also, I should mention that watershed management authorities do not have taxing authority written into the legislation. So as far as why to form a watershed management authority, I'm going to actually let these ladies answer that question in more detail. But like I mentioned before, we really want to emphasize the cooperation, leveraging resources, and working together to acquire grants and other kind of opportunities that might not be available if you're just kind of out on your own. As far as watershed management authorities go in Iowa, so we had our first 6 form officially in 2012. And that was through funding assistance through the 2008 disaster recovery funds that were made available. Since 2012, we now have 16. So this model is really catching on and I think gaining traction. We have 3 in the Cedar River Watershed, the Upper Cedar, the Indian Creek, and the Middle Cedar. And we have representatives here today from all of those. And as far as how WMAs are perceived statewide, the Iowa Watershed Approach, the $97 million grant that was awarded to the state of Iowa, Carl mentioned that, you'll hear a bit more about it. That targets watershed management authorities across the state, 9 WMAs. Some of those are still yet to be formed. There's going to be financial assistance for that. But the point is, people really are realizing that WMAs are a good investment because it shows that people want to work together. They want to get good work done. And so close to $11 million will be targeted toward the Middle Cedar through the Iowa Watershed Approach. This shows a map of where we have our WMAs. The kind of reddish one here, that doesn't really want to work on there. But anyway, the reddish one you can see is the Middle Cedar. So one of the bigger WMAs